everyone. I'm Casey Welch. I'm the current chair of the Manatee Chamber's Legislative Committee, affectionately known as the Chamber's Tallahassee Commandos. I think you guys named that way back in the day, right? It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to the preview of the upcoming 2023 legislative session. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone to turn off their cell phones, and if you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you'll bear with me this morning, we have several elected officials in the audience. I want to have them either stand or wave to be recognized, starting with the City of Bradenton, Mayor Jean Brown, Councilwoman and Vice Mayor Jane Coker. I don't know if the rest of your team is here, but I have RSVP'd as Councilwoman Marianne Barnaby, Pam Coachman, Lisa Gonzalez-Moore, and Councilman Josh Kramer. I didn't see him this morning, but is former President Pro Tem of the Florida Senate, Mike Bennett, and our supervisor election here. I didn't see him. He did RSVP. Our Clerk of Courts, Angels Colonesso, is she here? No? Okay. City of Bradenton Beach, Mayor John Chappie, did he make it today? Okay, from the town of Longboat Keys, Mayor Ken Schneider, you're here. Thank you for coming. And commissioners from the town, BJ Bishop and Penny Gold, thank you. From the Manatee County Commission, Chair Kevin Van Osterbridge, a former member of this committee. I say former, you keep moving up. So I didn't see Commissioner Bob, but I did see Commissioners Bearden and Cruz. Thank you for joining us. And from our school district chairman, Chad Choate, I saw him earlier today. Thank you for coming. And from Congressman Buchanan's office, I didn't see Sally here earlier, but I don't know if she made it. Sally Shealy or Susanna Morrison. Okay, there you are. Thank you. We want to thank you all for your continued public service to the community. I would also like to recognize the Chamber's top investors. These companies invest at the platinum level to support the important work and mission of our Chamber. They are Brown & Sons Funeral Homes and Crematoria, Carr, Riggs & Ingram, the City of Bradenton, IMG Academy, Manatee County Government, Manatee Memorial Hospital, Manatee County Rural Health and All Care Options, the Mosaic Company, NDC Construction Company, the Pittsburgh Pirates, Braden and Marauders Baseball, Raymond James Wealth Management and Bruce Body, Sarasota Braden and International Airport, South State Bank, and the newest platinum investor just announced is NDC Commercial Real Estate. So thank you all for their support. Our sponsors for today's event are Spectrum by Charter Communications and Kaiser University. Would appreciate their ongoing support. I would like to invite Dr. Michelle Morgan, the President and Associate Vice Chancellor for Kaiser, to please come to the podium.
Good morning. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event. This is always one of our favorites to attend and to sponsor, of course. And what a fun time to start your day, not only with this wonderful group up here. We're so fortunate to have the strength of this delegation in our community, really looking out for and fighting for us here in this area. So thank you to each of you for your tireless efforts. Kaiser University has been around for over 45 years. Here in this community, about 25, starting downtown Sarasota, and we are now at the corner of University and I-75 in Lakewood Ranch. We've been there for over 20 years and love serving this community. We offer everything from associate to doctoral level degrees, and in over 30 different programs in healthcare, legal, business, technology, and culinary arts. We are delighted to be able to do that for this community. If you look at our program offerings, it is very specific to this market and to the workforce gap that exists, so that our students will go out and be employed, hopefully by all of you in this market. And 85% of them stay local, so you want to make sure to talk to Jennifer or Emily, and they are in charge of our graduate placement, and they can hook you up with some fine employees. But we are the largest not-for-profit private university in the state of Florida, and we are one of the largest producers of nurses for this state, so you know that that's very important at this time. But if we can be of assistance to you, let us know. We are looking to offer some new programs in areas that this community needs, and are always looking to revamp and freshen up. So thank you for your support, and thank you also for being here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. Now, Albie Kamansky, with the Director of State Government Affairs with Spectrum by Charter Communications. Would you please come to the podium?
Casey. Please clap. Well, it's hard to follow Dr. Morgan like this, so. No, thank you, Casey. Thank you, Dr. Morgan, and thank you. My name is Albie Kaminsky with Charter Communications. Many of you all know us in the community as Spectrum. But before saying a couple of words about Spectrum, wanted to take the opportunity to one more time thank the folks at the Manatee County Chamber of Commerce for doing this incredible event year after year. So Jackie, Jenny, I know Tara is overseas, like 12 hours ahead of time, and still emailing us to put on this incredible event. So thank you to the Manatee County Chamber of Commerce. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes to make this incredible event happen, so I wanted to give them a round of applause one more time. So a little bit about Spectrum or Charter Communications. Every single year, our company comes up with this great fact sheet, and it talks a great deal about the customers we serve, and over 3 million customers throughout the state, and the amount of employees that we have, and it's fantastic. And we'll always like the opportunity year after year to dive into some of these. But just last week, as I was driving back from Tallahassee, I was thinking about there were some different occurrences that happened throughout the week, and I figured that one might be a little bit easier to help tell the Spectrum story. So first and foremost, I was walking out of an event after meeting with one of the legislators here, and ran into one of the local county commissioners up in the Florida Panhandle region. And ultimately, he said, "Albie, got a constituent call." And of course, when, as every staffer here in this building, whenever they hear a constituent call, they're getting their pen ready. They're ready to see how can we fix this issue from a local county commissioner. And ultimately, they said, "Albie, this is fantastic. This is not a complaint this time. We had a fantastic, right? We had somebody in a rural area of our district who did not have internet out in this area. And because of your company, you were able to expand out and connect them to the 21st century that we live here today." And so ultimately, I'm very proud of the company, but it's because of programs like what the legislature did over the past couple of years to create those incentives for us to go out into all those rural and unserved areas. That was a really fantastic moment in the company. So basically, the key takeaway there is that Spectrum is expanding. And then right after that, I run into an old friend, and again, I haven't seen him in a couple of years in the legislative process. And instantly he says, "Albie, what's going on? I haven't seen you in a while. How's Senator Boyd?" And so there are worse things to be mistaken for. A lot of people still think that I do work for Senator Boyd, which is fantastic. Again, a lot.
Would you pay him to say this?
Right. So again, ultimately, worse things out there. But I ultimately said, he's like, "So where are you working? What are you doing these days?" And I said, "I'm working for Spectrum." He raised his eyebrow at me and said, "Oh, Spectrum. I think I just cut the cord the other month." And I said, "Okay, wow, good to catch up with you too, buddy. It's been quite some time." And he said, No, you didn't let me finish." So I cut the cord, but I'm now using your app. So I'm actually using your Apple TV, and I'm just connecting through your app, and I ended up getting your mobile device. So the key takeaway there is that ultimately Spectrum is evolving. We're expanding and we're evolving. Ultimately, we thought we're no longer just that traditional cable company that you've seen from the Bright House days. We are now expanding and we are evolving. And then, unfortunately, to round this all out on Wednesday, we had a very tragic experience within our company that I know a lot of you all unfortunately saw, was that we had a reporter out in the Orlando area that tragically lost his life, and then a cameraman that was also hospitalized as well, but doing it in good condition now. But ultimately, it was a very challenging week for us internally, but the overwhelming community support that we all received as a company, just in the community and from elected officials on both sides of these tables here, was fantastic and greatly appreciated. So the key takeaway there is that we're invested in the communities that we serve, and you all are invested in us. So again, it was a pretty unique week, and made me feel pretty proud to represent this company. And again, we're committed to connecting our communities, and there's a strong connection there. So we're very excited to be here and sponsor this event today. But all of that said, today isn't about Spectrum. I love my company. Clearly, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid here. But today is about these elected officials here who are making their sacrifice every single day, and this part-time job that is really not part-time at all, that are every single day that they are up in Tallahassee is a day that they are away from their family. It's a day that they're away from their friends. It's a day that they're away from their real jobs. So again, your sacrifice is noted, but we really thank you for your service to the community and for the state at large. So thank you guys again. So all of that said, again, thank you to the Chamber, thank you to IMG, thank you to our elected officials, and let's enjoy the pancakes and enjoy the politics.
Thank you, Albie. So do I need to make any meeting requests through him now for you? Okay. Okay, good. I appreciate that. Last but not least, I would like to recognize the Chamber's Legislative Committee. Many of them are here today. Please go ahead and stand up. The 15 of us, the Legislative Committee, you know who you are. I know you're here hiding. Okay. Round of applause to that group. Starting back in the fall, worked through our public policy process, and a couple weeks ago, 15 of us, including myself and Chamber VP for Public Policy, Tara Polden, were in Tallahassee and met with our wonderful delegation, and also with the the Secretary and the District Secretary of the Department of Transportation, and also officials at the Department of Environmental Protection about our entire legislative list, which is at your table. And I want to commend them very much for having outstanding meetings, and to our delegation for being wonderful hosts up in Tallahassee. I think if you talk to the Chamber Legislative Committee members that are in the room, it was very worthwhile, and something that if you are a member of the Chamber, and something if you have a chance to go with the group to Tallahassee, please take the time to do it, because it's very worthwhile. Now I'd like to start with our program with introducing our legislative delegation, and introduce former chair of this committee, State Senator Jim Boyd.
Excuse me. Thank you. I got battling allergies this morning, so I apologize. Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Manatee Chamber. Also, Spectrum, Albie, Kaiser, Dr. Morgan, thank you for your continued sponsorship of these events. I think they're great. I know my colleagues and I look forward to these events to be able to connect with our community right before we go back to Tallahassee. And as Casey said, we've been there for a while in committee weeks. Started in December, we had, as you remember, a special session. Then we started some committees in January, February, and we're home 1 week, thankfully, before the real fun begins. Session starts next Tuesday, and then we're there for 2 months, home some weekends as we can, and toward the latter part of the session, generally we're up there pretty much 24/7. So it's that season, and we're getting ready to go. What I'd like to do, and they asked us to talk a little bit about what committees we serve on, what bills I'm working on, and then we'll move on to some questions and answers. And I've got to write these down because our Senate President was so kind in giving us more committees than we've ever had before. And I don't think I've got them all that I'm on. I apologize for that. But first of all, I'm chairing banking and insurance again. I chaired that the last 2 years, so I was fortunate enough to be able to chair that committee again. And as you know, and I'll mention very briefly in a minute, there's a lot going on in the banking and insurance space. I'm also on rules, judiciary, agriculture appropriations, which covers a lot in the state budget besides just agriculture, transportation as well. And I think I'm missing one, but those are the main committees that I serve on. This year, some of the initiatives I'm working on, I made a conscious effort this year because we've been doing a lot over the past several years with some high kind of visibility and some big policy issues. This year I made a conscious effort to try to dial back a little bit and just focus on a handful of things versus a lot of things. And so far that's working out okay. One of the programs that we have in Florida is My Safe Florida Home, which gives Floridians the ability to access some grant dollars to harden their homes prior to hurricanes or storms, and gives them the chance to hopefully make their homes more storm-proof, if you will, also with some funding from the state. So that's a good program, and there's a little expansion that we're working on there. One of the issues that I've worked on and we've talked about before over the years is the opioid crisis that we have amongst us in our communities and in our country, regardless of what sometimes you hear from the federal government who says we don't have a crisis. Well, I would encourage you to go to Manatee Memorial, Blake Memorial, or any place in Bradenton or Sarasota or Florida or across the country and see what's happening and how families are being destroyed and lives are being wrecked by the epidemic that we have. So this year, the bill that I've got allows college residence halls to have opioid antagonists, which is also known or commonly known as Narcan, those types of things on the facility under, sort of guard by the experts that are there that kind of run the hall, but also available in the event of an overdose. Sadly, we hate to think that is going on on our college campuses, but it's going on everywhere. So that would just give one more chance of life-saving measures on the college campuses. Also, a bill I'm working on is the theft of catalytic converters. Some have heard a lot about that. If you're in the auto business or in auto leasing business, or sometimes even individuals, there's a rash of catalytic converter thefts, and thieves go in the night with a sawzall, cut one end of the converter and the other end and take it. It takes about 30 seconds, if that. And they're making off with, in some cases, dozens and dozens of those every night from different facilities like UPS or Enterprise Leasing or the like, and then selling them for the precious metals inside. I realized it was a big problem when I learned week before last that not only are those types of folks impacted by it that we heard. I had one person tell me it happened to them, but the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile fell victim to catalytic converter theft. Now that's when we put our foot down. Enough is enough. But seriously, it is a big problem, and it's something that's costing individuals and businesses lots and lots of money. So we're trying to get our arms around that with some penalties. Also, I'm working on a Buy U.S. Steel bill, which seems kind of normal, but some of and it has to do with public projects, public funded projects, and there are some parameters around it. But that's I think a good initiative. Albie mentioned the broadband that's going to some areas. It's not in every area, sadly, yet, but we're working hard on it. And I know Spectrum and their other colleagues in that space are. But we're expanding. We hope to expand the audio telehealth bill that was in place. Governor DeSantis put in during the pandemic, where if you didn't have the ability for video conferencing with your doctor, you could do an audio telehealth bill and just talk on the phone. In fact, I did that in Tallahassee with my physician for my kind of annual checkup because I couldn't get home and we didn't have video conferencing available at that particular moment. So we did a phone call, and everything, I think everything was fine. So y'all will be the judge of that before this is over. But so we're expanding that to allow that on a full-time basis, and that seems to be something that our constituents want. Also working on some seagrass restoration legislation. Some of you know and some of you don't. We've got beautiful seagrass in these bays and waterways around us, but in some cases, in some areas, it's diminishing. So we're working on some with the folks that you know around this area, USF and MOAT and others, to restore and to provide some legislation and then funding for restoration there. And then lastly, a bill that has to do with dentistry, which I'm certainly not an expert, but it's around the practice of dentistry and some of these mail order companies that send you, some of you use them maybe, I hope you've had good experience. A lot of people haven't when they use these mail order appliances they put on, not under the supervision of a dentist or a practitioner. So we're trying to put some guidelines around that so you and your friends and neighbors and families are protected if in the event you use those types of appliances. There's a lot going on, my colleagues will talk about, but a lot of big things. Affordable housing, attainable housing this year is a real push from the Senate. I know we're going to talk about, or my colleagues over here will, some of the tort reform that we're working on this year. We did extensive amount in the property insurance bill that we did in December. And I'll be happy to talk about any of those things a little bit later, but now's my time to sit down and let the others talk. But thanks for having us, and we're glad to be here this morning.
Thank you, Senator Boyd. Senator Joe Gruters.
Thank you. First, I'd like to welcome Jim Boyd to my district. It's great to be here. It's we go every 10 years we go through redistricting, and I was fortunate to pick up Southern Manatee now. So it's excited to be representing some of you in the state Senate. But at first, I want to say our delegation is super strong. We have probably one of the strongest delegations in Tallahassee, and that will continue. Our influence and ability to make things happen will continue to grow. I tell people I carry Jim Boyd's bags, even though he's a sophomore, I'm a junior. He is a absolute rock of the Senate, does an amazing job, and what you're going to see over the next 18, hopefully 24 months, maybe sooner, is our homeowners insurance prices coming down. And there's one person that's been leading that effort. I know it's been a disaster for everybody, and that's Jim Boyd, and that's because his experience in the industry. And for that, you deserve a round of applause just for tackling that major issue. 3 major bills over the past 12 months, so that's very exciting. I'm going to leave most of my time for questions and answers, but I'm on the I won't. What they do is sometimes they put you on all these committees so you can't cause problems. And so in the Senate, they put us on 9, 10 committees. We don't have time for a lot of the meetings with our constituents when they come up, but I'm fortunate enough they put me in charge of the regulated industries. And they call that sometimes the Sen Committee because it's in charge of the gambling, alcohol, all utilities, all the fun stuff. Some of my most and some of the better bills that I'm running this cycle is, if you remember, I had 3 bills vetoed last year by the governor. It's doing an amazing job overall. Out of the 6 he vetoed, but one of them is alimony reform. It's and as a professional, I could tell you that divorce is devastating, but it's the most devastating on the people that go through it. And the question is how can we find the right balance to make sure that when people go through that absolutely terrible situation, that they do it in a way that they can keep as many assets as possible. I'm also running a law enforcement officer Bill of Rights to help protect them. And of course, I'm bringing back another bill, partisan school boards elections, because the one thing that, living in Manatee and Sarasota that you could all realize is none of these races are not nonpartisan. And what it is, it's a trick. You're trying to pull a fast one on the voters by trying to conceal the identity of people's true beliefs. And why do we register in certain political parties? Is we have shared common beliefs, and that should be known to all the voters. And so those are probably my top 3 bills this cycle, but it's going to be an interesting couple of months because we are going to tackle, just like we tackled insurance over the last 18 months, we're really going to go after affordable housing. And for all of you that are in business and the struggle that we all have in terms of trying to make sure we keep our employees from moving. I know, I have employees in my CPA firm and then also in my legislative firm, and we get calls and people talk to me all the time. My rent's gone up $500-600 year after year. And so what does that mean? That means you better step up and match that. Otherwise, you're toast and you're going to lose them. So it's a big issue for everybody in this entire state. We have 1,100 people moving here a day, so you can see the demand is high. So the question is how can we increase that supply in the most effective manner? But everything we do up here is for the greater good of Florida to make sure we live we continue to live in paradise. And I love being your senator for those of you who are in southern Manatee County, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gruters, and we appreciate you having you north of the border now. And I think let's take a second and talk about the importance of this delegation and how well they work as a regional unit across county lines. And I think that just speaks volumes for our community in Tallahassee. So I'll recognize former member of this committee, Representative Will Robinson.
I was not prepared. I thought we were going to go alphabetically. And I really still don't like the fact you start with the senators first. You know, we are the people's house. We are, and the senators tend to talk a lot and go on and on and on. And last week we had our last committee week, and we had a 5-hour, Tommy, hearing in judiciary, and then another 5-hour hearing in civil justice. I don't know what the Senate was doing last week, but we actually had a couple senators show up at our committee just to watch and see what the House is doing. So I don't know if y'all are doing ice cream socials or what y'all are doing, but we're working hard in the Florida House. I'm kidding. We love our Senate colleagues, and actually I'm running a couple bills that Senator Boyd mentioned, so I won't mention formally running. He just said. It's really great to be here. It's my fifth time. Actually, it's all of our fifth times coming here. I'm in my fifth year, so it's kind of crazy to think of it this way. God willing, I'll serve 8 years in the Florida House, and I'm already on the back end of that. So this is really one of the great events. I think it may be the biggest event I've seen here at the chamber. So congratulations, Jackie, and your team, and to everyone here that really cares about our community. And you only have to look out that window. Why? I mean, people want to move here. They want to live here. To me, one of the major issues that I will be looking at and studying and making sure we bring back good results for is water quality. We obviously have a little bit of a red tide issue out there that hopefully will be resolved soon. Senator Boyd mentioned seagrass mitigation bill, which is incredibly important. We have seagrass that's dying throughout the state, and we have no cohesive plan. And just like with the Red Tide Initiative we passed a few years ago, we need a cohesive plan to make sure we're doing the right thing throughout the state. An issue you all may have read about is very passionate to me is beach access. And this is very personal to me with my family's history with the Robinson Preserve. I feel very passionate about the ability for the public to access our public lands and certainly our public beaches. So, and if you all have specific questions about this issue, I'd be happy to expand. But Senator Boyd and I have been working very hard, along with the delegation, frankly, to work with our island city partners to look to the future. Because people, like I mentioned earlier, are wanting to move and live here. In the state of Florida, tourism is actually going to go up 25% over the next 5 years. So we are going to continually struggle, whether you want to call it struggle or maybe enhance the issues that we're having, because folks want to come here because of our beautiful water and because of our beautiful beaches. And so we always must have the opportunity for folks to visit those places. So we're working really hard on that, and we've had a lot of productive meetings. And I think that's what you all should be proud of with regard to government is Senator Boyd and I have been meeting with the island mayors and those out on the island to make sure we can come to an agreement, to come together for common sense solutions for all of you. Senator Gruters mentioned it. We're booming in the state of Florida. 1,100 people a day. The city the size of Orlando every year, which is wonderful, but that comes with complications, whether it's to our infrastructure, whether it's to our education system, whether it's to our water system. So Speaker Renner has been very clear this year that we are looking forward at those issues, whether it's water or infrastructure. We actually set up a main committee to deal with those issues, and I'm pleased to be on the Water Quality Subcommittee. So we'll be dealing with a lot of those issues that are very important to this community especially. Last year we had the largest middle-class tax cut in the history of the state of Florida. I expect this year it to be larger. I serve with Representative Buchanan on Ways and Means, and we've gone through several committee hearings about the amount of revenue coming into the state. It's actually tremendous. There is a tremendous amount of investment in this state. So the budget is frankly the only constitutional requirement we have. So that is the product we're working on right now. But how much of that money can we return to the taxpayer? The governor was here a few months ago talking about his plan, which would be, if enacted, the largest tax cut in the history of Florida. So we're working hard on that. We're working hard for you all. I won't list my 6 committees. I'm on a bunch of committees myself, including chairing civil justice. And technically, my boss is actually sitting to my right. Tommy Gregory is the chair of judiciary, so he's technically my boss this year. So we're going to do some great work in that space, in another space. And I just thank you all for your time and your support to me and your support of us. It means a lot as we go up there and fight for you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Robinson. And I want to thank you for always having an open door policy for all of the folks back home. Although I think you threatened earlier to start charging me rent in your office in particular, but we'll negotiate that later. Next, I want to introduce another former member of the Legislative Committee, Representative Tommy Gregory.
Well, I'm not going to talk about parking garages. We've had enough of those discussions, but look forward to continuing to work on that to solve that problem. You know, unlike my colleagues here, and I do feel bad for you serving on 6 committees or 7 committees or 9 committees. I'm on 2 committees, so yeah, they're gonna hit me for that later. It really is a lot to have on your plate when you're serving on a number of committees, because it does prevent you from being able to spend time with your constituents when they come up to visit. You know, the committees you're the infantry when you're on the committees, because you have to serve on a variety of different practice areas, and you've got to hear bills that cross everything from water quality to transportation to judiciary. I would say my role, since I'm only serving as chair of judiciary and on the appropriations committee, I would say you could view me more as a sniper this year. And that's how I took my marching orders from the Speaker of the House. And the orders were very clear. Go into the civil justice system and do in the civil justice system what Senator Boyd did in the property insurance market last year. Find and remove areas that are being exploited, areas that are being abused, things that are causing our premiums to rise in auto insurance and life insurance and everything, in health insurance, all the things that are happening inside the legal system that you would say, as an outsider, you would look at it and go, that doesn't make sense. Why would you get that much money for a slip and fall? Why would you get that much money when you caused the accident? So I will tell you that I'm running the biggest tort reform bill in Florida's history this year, by far. Now, we started off saying, okay, we want to do one thing, or we want to do 2 things. We have 5 separate components in this bill before we hit Chairman Robinson's committee last Friday. And I'll just give you some behind-the-scenes stuff. We were approached from the plaintiff's attorneys that said, you know, this bill actually hurts businesses a little bit. And then after I got done laughing, I said, you're right. We're going to make it more business-friendly. We're going to add another tort reform measure. And they came back again and they said the same thing. And then we added 2 more tort reform measures. So now we're on 7, each one of which would have been the biggest tort reform after property insurance in Florida's history. Together, this really is a monumental occasion. So this bill is going to stop plaintiffs' attorneys from being able to treat court systems like an ATM. You know, right now they're just kind of going in, filing lawsuits, and it's spitting out money. It's just a broken system right now. And I'll just give you one example. There is an attorney in South Florida that filed 50,000 lawsuits. 50,000. Last year, 50,000. They're averaging 75,000 lawsuits a year. So you know the system is broken. It's got to be fixed, and we're going to do it. I'm going to serve as your sniper, and we're going to get that bill across the finish line through the House and through the Senate and bring that to Governor DeSantis' desk. He's already done a press conference on it, so I don't think he'll veto it, Joe, but we'll see. I certainly hope not, but you never know. You know, he certainly has a big agenda that you're hearing new ideas from the governor's office every week, and that's keeping us busy. The other thing that I'll work on, actually, the other thing that I'll leave with you, and I get this question quite a bit when people come to visit me in Tallahassee, including the chamber delegation when they came to visit recently. They always ask, how can we help you? How can we help you, Representative Gregory? How can we help you, Senator Boyd? And I used to say, well, if I'm running for office or I've got this constituent issue, you know, there may be some very specific thing that you can help me with. But I think elected officials in the room will agree with me when I say you can do one thing for me. It would be very helpful. Don't elect crazy people to office. Just don't do it. And that is a truism. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or you're independent. It includes us. I don't think any of us are crazy. You may disagree, but I'll tell you, when you elect the crazy, the most extreme in one party or the other, you can vote for the most conservative, the most liberal. I mean, but the crazy people, the people that are really just running so that they can be famous on Twitter, don't send us those people. They're not helpful. They're not helpful in the council. They're not helpful on the county commissioners, and they're not helpful in Tallahassee or DC. So make good choices in your primaries and your general elections, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Representative Gregory, and I'll pile on your point about identifying non-crazy people. Your leadership of the Judiciary Committee this past week on a very, very emotional issue for a lot of people, I think was incredible and well represented our community. Just want to thank you for that, and your even keel of dealing with both sides on an issue just shows again the respect of the community, and I think it reflects well on you. So thank you for your leadership on that. And now I'll introduce a good friend and fellow Cardinal Mooney alum, James Buchanan.
Thank you, Casey. I'm going to give these senators a little cover here. I wasn't at either of those 5-hour hearings as well. And the reason for that is I'm not on either of those committees. Good morning. It's great to be here with you this morning. We do have an amazing team here that's working hard for you in Tallahassee. When I begin to look at some of the things that I'm working on this upcoming session, Representative Robinson touched on for our Speaker in the House, Speaker Renner, a big priority has been around making sure that we have a holistic approach when we begin to think about the future of Florida. And when I talk about the future of Florida, we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about water quantity, water quality, we're talking about conservation. Take a holistic approach around all of these things and making sure that when we're looking to do a new road or we're looking to conserve land, we're being thoughtful in some of these other silos. In the past, a lot of this has been siloed out. So this is something that I'm really excited about being a part of as it relates to chairing the Agriculture, Conservation, and Resiliency Subcommittee, of which what we're doing, when I begin to hear from folks, even folks that work, some of these bureaucrats that work within some of these agencies, to hear that the federal government has a more efficient conservation easement process than we do in the state of Florida. That's something that bugs me a little bit, right? I mean, they certainly shouldn't be doing things better than we can, or faster, or more efficient. And so there's lots of red tape that we can cut through when we begin to look at some of this stuff. And as someone that's a realtor, someone that's a real estate broker, I know that time is what kills deals. When something takes 2 years, 3 years, longer for an average transaction, that kills deals. When you look at the main reason a lot of folks within the ag community or other spaces need to sell property in this space, a lot of times it has to do with a death in the family and that death tax. So we've got to create mechanisms of which we can move faster. I'm grateful to have the opportunity. What we move through my committee, I'll be shepherding through the process till the end. This is something as it relates to conservation, agriculture, resiliency. These are legacy projects. Projects we're going to look back in time, my kids, your grandkids, and be happy that we played a part in all of it. We're going to be helping leverage local governments, allowing them to make investments in their community and leveraging some of those investments from Tallahassee. So that's something that I'm really excited to be working on. There's a few other things that are kind of interesting and fun, and the other members here brought up a few of them, but Why don't I talk about a few of the projects that I'll be working on? One of them of which is kind of neat. It's resiliency districts is something that we're going to be looking at. So special districts, different types of districts, these are financing mechanisms within communities of which help finance a variety of different things. There are many different things that you could potentially do with a resiliency district that we're looking to create, whether we're talking about foundations with some of these condominiums and other places, master associations of which could go to the private sector, a local community bank, they could go to a regional bank somewhere else to get financing, come together, band together for a specific project, get financing. Whether we're talking about perhaps a beachfront community of which does not qualify for state dollars as it relates to renourishment. This is something that they could look at, going to a local bank and banding together. If you wanted to wind down local municipalities, 2 or 3 local municipalities, and I know no one up here wants to do that, you could look at potentially using a resiliency district. So there's a lot of exciting applications around some of this, of which we could potentially be looking at. And so it has yet to see its first stop. In fact, it was just filed, so I'm looking forward to having that conversation with some of the committees and some of the members up here. Another thing I will be working on this session, and I just decided to file it. It wasn't something where, I'd been given, spoke to folks that would bless a bill like this, but I don't know, did a lot of folks here lose power during the storm? Ian? Well, we lost power, and I was thankful to have that opportunity to fire up that gas stove. I was thankful to have that opportunity to go in with my dad and my brother, made a great pasta Italian dinner. It was a great dinner. We also threw some steaks on the gas grill. I thought that was amazing. 2 months later, we begin to hear about, from the Biden administration and other places, that, maybe some of these gas appliances we should look at doing away with. And I don't know about you, but that bugged me. That bugged me when it helped keep my family fed during that storm. In fact, I think it's an important piece when you live in Florida to have some diversity coming into your home, whether that's in terms of energy coming into your home. And so for me, I thought about it. I said, well, why don't we take a look at making sure that local governments and other governmental subdivisions aren't able to ban gas appliances if applied pressure through the Biden administration. So we're looking to do that. That'll be a bill that I'm filing. And so I'm excited about some of the things that we're working on here together. Appreciate the opportunity. And by the way, I just want to end with this. I will say, and I don't know if we want to say part of it's Casey's leadership or the leadership here today, I've always said the largest group that comes to Tallahassee in terms of the chamber is this group. This is the largest group that always comes up. I give Sarasota Chamber and others a hard time about it because there's 2 or 3 people that always show up, and this chamber dwarfs them in size when they come up. So thank you for coming up. Thank you for letting us know some of those issues that are most important to you, and it's an honor to serve you in the Florida House. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Buchanan. I'm sure that attendance has nothing to do with the wonderful reception at the Governor's Club that's sponsored by Tico's People Gas, which has nothing to do with what you just said. But I think that was a small part of it. And I also want to recognize you as a USF alum. Thank you for your USF support, along with your other USF alum up here, Senator Gruters. Last but not least, you traveled the farthest, Representative Mike Beltran.
Well, thank you all. Good morning. It's good to be here. My name is Mike Beltran. I'm new to the delegation here in Manatee County. I represent South Hillsborough and North Manatee County, north of the river, kind of along the coast, west of 301. For my first session representing part of Manatee County, so nice to get to know some new folks. Although I see a lot of folks I've met already in the audience. We'll be going into session next week, as I'm sure you all have heard already. I've got a bunch of bills filed. I'm going to file a couple more this afternoon, later today. I'm a litigator by trade, and I've been serving in used to serve with Rep. Gregory, and now with Rep. Robinson, kind of in that judiciary silo. The first bill I filed was a bill on sovereign immunity. So you all have businesses. You were hearing a little bit from Rep. Gregory about the business litigation environment in Florida. You all have businesses. You have full exposure to liability if someone gets hurt, if you hurt somebody, or if there's some other type of lawsuit. You're fully exposed. The government's not. The government has very little accountability. The government has what's called sovereign immunity, and they cap your damages at a very low level. If your business gets harmed by the government, or an individual gets harmed by the government, there's very little recourse. You can bring a claim bill to the legislature, but that's kind of a arduous process, and there's really no guarantee you'll be successful. So we're trying to reform sovereign immunity, make it more possible to hold the government accountable the same way that everyone else is held accountable. We almost enacted that bill last year, and we're back this year. Moved that bill a couple weeks ago, and hopefully move that bill again in the next week or two. I also have a bill to protect judges. We saw last summer there were a lot of judges who were being, including Supreme Court justices, as well as judges at other levels in the justice system. People were coming to their houses and trying to intimidate them into making this decision or that. So one of the federal judges here in the Middle District, which includes all the Tampa Bay area and some areas further afield, asked me to run a bill to protect judges, if somebody tries to dox a judge, to allow the judge to get that information down off of the internet. So I'll be running that as well. We also have a bill to reform the traffic enforcement and license suspension. We have a lot of the volume in our judiciary is essentially somebody has committed some low-level crime, they have a fine or a fee, then they get their license suspended, then they're driving, then they stop them and then they charge them with their license suspended. And sometimes you see somebody, they'll have 5, maybe even 10 charges, separate and apart from what they did wrong. But you'll have 5, I guess it's wrong, but they'll have 5 or 10 charges just out of having their driver license suspended and then not paying the fee and then driving without the license. And obviously we need to enforce traffic laws, we need to enforce other laws, but I don't think the government should be leveraging someone if you don't pay a fine for littering. Now you're going to take the driver's license away. It's not really going to help you pay the fine. So we've been trying to reform that, put people on payment plans and make sure their license is not suspended and that the fines are enforced in other manners. Another bill I'm working on is to update our child safety car seat bill that's been in statute for a while, but it's really not up to date with what the Academy of Pediatrics recommends. There's no requirement for rear-facing car seats. Anyone with a kid, hopefully you have your kid in the rear-facing car seat until they're about 2 or 3. There's no requirement for that. Then there's really no requirement past the age of 5 for any type of car seat. As most of y'all also probably know, that kids should be in booster seats for a little while longer after that. So it's not terribly stringent, and the remedy for it is that somebody has an opportunity to take a class. There's no fines or points in the legislation as I've drafted, but to make sure that, because basically manufacturers and stores sell what's required by law, so we want to update those guidelines as well. I have a bill to eliminate some of the dark money that you see in political campaigns. Sometimes you have an interest group or somebody, and they'll give money and then they'll launder it through 5 or 10 political committees, and it'll come out the other side. I believe in free speech. People should be able to participate in the process, but we also have laws and accountability and disclosure requirements in the election code, and those should not be evaded. So if you want to mail against somebody or support somebody for that matter, that should be disclosed, and it should be in a transparent manner. I also have a bill to prevent, we've seen a lot of inappropriate materials in school libraries and in school curriculums. That's been well documented in the news. But we have a loophole in Florida law in terms of distribution of those materials, where essentially it's written such that if the information's something that an adult would be able to access in a private place, it's something that the school officials and others are allowed to distribute to children without being afoul of the criminal laws that would otherwise apply. Something that might be an appropriate or permissible for an adult to access on their own time with private resources is not something that should be distributed, obviously, to minors. There's a completely different standard there. And so I'm going to try to close up that loophole. And I have a bill that if you're running for school board, you're allowed to disclose your partisan identity. There's usually a lot of this people are kind of running as a Democrat or Republican, but they can't really say it. And there's this kind of whole disingenuous kind of dance that everyone does. You should be able to say, not that we're going to make the elections partisan per se, although there is other legislation to do that that'll be moving, but just that you're allowed to, as a matter of, that's yours? Okay. All right, good. So I'll be supporting that too, but I don't want to steal, I'm not trying to steal your thunder, but I just in terms of allowing you're allowed to say, if I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, the voter may want to know. You shouldn't be hamstrung. The judges can't disclose that for good reason, because we want to have an appearance of impartiality in the justice system. But school board is more akin to a county commission or a state legislator. And do I have time for one more? Sure. Okay. I got a bill. Okay, I use all my bill slots, guys. All right. So where they limit us to 7. The senators have unlimited bill slots. But I had some legislation I introduced about 3 or 4 years ago, which was to expand the surrendered newborns program, which is essentially somebody is allowed within a certain amount of time after giving birth, if they're overwhelmed and they're not able to care for the baby at a hospital, police station, firehouse, they're allowed to surrender that infant. And we found, especially from experience in other states, that prevents people from abandoning their infants, where the infant would be at risk of dying or being injured. That program has worked very well, but leaving the baby on kind of the doorstep of the hospital is not as good as this program that we've actually implemented in Ocala, where you have a box and it's air conditioned and it locks when you put the baby in, and they can access it on the other side, and it's alarmed, and it's just a safer process. For the baby. We actually had a surrender at in Ocala, which is where they installed the first box a couple years ago, and I was there for that ribbon cutting. And we want to expand that program and kind of put some guidelines on that statewide to make sure that it functions well. So, I'll leave it there. Thank you all, and I guess we'll answer some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Beltran, and thank you to your commitment to, as being a new member of this delegation, of coming down. And I think the bills that you've introduced shows, again, the seriousness of your commitment to legislating. I think that's what Representative Gregory was talking about, electing serious folks. So thank you for your commitment to Manatee County now that you're part of this delegation and coming down here. When we are going to get into Q&A, I have time for a couple questions. Although I see a very long line that's out to the parking lot queuing up. But I want to do 2 things before that. I want to recognize that Representative Mike Grant and Representative Fiona McFarland were invited to attend and could not make it today. But I also want to do one thing that the legislative delegation and on behalf of the delegation, I want to recognize all the legislative staff here. If you just raise your hand, all the legislative staff that's working here, thank you for what you do. So on behalf of the delegation, thank you. So there is a microphone right over here. I want you to state your question and keep it very brief, and I will try to translate whatever the question is and look at one of the representatives of senators to answer. So please start by saying your name and the organization that you're with, if you're with an organization. Go ahead, sir.
Mike Meehan, Manatee County resident, Me and Family LLC. I'm kind of interested in the interaction that takes place between the municipalities and the counties in the state and the legislative bodies. Specifically, if a county or a municipality has a project they're interested in pursuing, but it's not legal according to federal or state statute, that the municipality can work with the Florida delegation in their respective geographic locations to get approval from the Florida delegation and then present it to the Tallahassee governmental bodies for approval. And I'm interested in exactly how does that process work, and actually is there a process like this?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the required legislative delegation meeting, but Rep. Robinson?
So there currently isn't a process where, for instance, the legislative delegation comes together, and if I'm not answering your question correctly, let me know. The legislative delegation comes together to review private projects. The only jurisdiction the state has is over some sort of a comprehensive plan amendment. So if a comprehensive plan amendment is passed, it's transmitted to the state where our folks look at it and then transmit it back to the county for another plan for or review. What the delegation does do is we do meet once a year to review and adopt local bills. So we did advance 2 local bills, and those bills are specific to local area issues. Usually don't involve development, but usually, frankly, some sort of preemption issue sometimes, or some sort of taxing issue. So that's usually what our role is.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Steve Tinsworth, Tinsworth Orthodontics, and I'm here in behalf of our dental community to say thank you to our delegation. Thank you to the Chamber for putting these things together. We are so appreciative of the work that this delegation has done historically for Manatee County and for the citizens in behalf of healthcare. They've always been a positive, supportive aspect to quality care going for patients in our community. I've worked both local, state, and nationally for over 30 years with different aspects of healthcare, and these people have been fantastic, and I appreciate each one of them. We've talked over the years, and especially appreciate Senator Boyd for his stepping forward with the dental program for this particular legislature. So in behalf of those, and appreciation for the State College of Florida Dental Hygiene Program, the MTC Dental Assisting Program, and LECOM Dental School, we thank you for all your support and for the help that you give to the community. Thank you.
That's a great question. Those are the best kind. That's good.
I know that wasn't a question, but thank you, Dr. Tinsworth. And I just want to say that's a perfect example of what it means for community friends to bring an issue to us. I didn't know about this dental situation until Dr. Tinsworth and the dental community brought it to me, and it sounded like a pretty serious problem that we need to get our arms around. So that's a perfect example of how important your input is to us as we go to Tallahassee to try to do what you want on behalf of our community. Thanks.
And thank you, Dr. Tinsworth. Thank you, Senator Boyd, for all the great things you're doing. I'm actually running your dental cleanup bill this year, of which, by the way, what's been interesting, so in the past, we've been at odds. Myself, the FDA, been at odds because we wanted to add more reciprocity for dental hygienists, dentists coming in and out of the state. Well, that bill, while it didn't pass, resulted in reciprocity. In fact, the examination we are looking to add in was absorbed into the ADEX. So I was now very excited to run this FDA cleanup bill, which helps codify some of that. So thank you guys for all the great work you guys do within our community. I'm excited to see a little bit more reciprocity because there are dentists across our community in the state that have a shortage when it comes to dental hygienists, and we're excited to be addressing that. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir.
Keith Green. First, I would like to also share the same sentiments as Representative Gregory. We do need to stop voting crazy. But with that being said, Senate Bill 1110, what's the status of that? Because that could be one of the remedies that could help that sort of situation.
Could you just identify more of the title, just the bill number?
Yes, Senate Bill 1110, which sets term limits for school board members and members of the county commission.
Anyone want to take that? You want to take that? It's not your bill, but do you want to comment on it?
So what happened is last year I passed a bill that moved school board term limits to 12 years along with some other things. And what happened is the governor came back this year and said he wanted to tighten that to 8 years. I think Blaise Ignolia has that, and he's going to also apply that to all the county commissioners. So if you're in the county commission or in the school board now, it would only impact you after the next election cycle, so you'd still have 8 more years. But I think term limits overall is probably a good thing for our community as we see. You get some new blood and new ideas. But my guess is that will probably pass.
Thank you, Senator. We've got time for about 2 more questions. The representatives are going to stay here afterwards to answer your individual questions, so please feel free to come up afterwards. So you're on deck, Tom.
And I'll be brief. Tom Waters, CEO, Easter Seals. I'm going to take the Albee model because I met him when he was working for Senator Boyd. You did a good job training him. Okay. I want to thank each of you for your leadership for all our children. We're hearing about a lot of big issues. All children, most of you know, Easter Seals serves children with autism, disabilities, and we do all this together. I can go around this room from Willis Smith to USF to, we are a community. The Chamber had 70 people at Happiness House, 75 years of serving. We are a community that cares. We're a community that makes a difference together. And I just wanted to thank each of you for doing it together and taking time from your busy schedules this morning to be together. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right, last question.
All right, since the last question was really a statement, I've got 2 small questions here. I'm Jack May. I'm the president of Manatee Patriots. No, they're brief. I can be brief. First of all, does constitutional carry have any
What
chance?
group are you with, and what's your name again?
Manatee Patriots, Jack May.
Okay, thank you.
Formerly known as Tea Party Manatee, that meets every Tuesday night at Mixon Fruit Farms. Does constitutional carry have any chance of making it to the floor looking like something more than concealed carry?
Okay, Representative Chair Gregory. Sorry to call you out on that. The expert? Yes, it has.
Well, it's already passed out of all the House committees that it's going to, so there's no chance it'll be modified before it hits the House floor. That bill is already pretty expansive. It removes the requirement for you to have a concealed carry permit. As long as you're authorized to buy the firearm, you can now carry it concealed without permit. The permit process still is in place because some people want to buy a permit for reciprocity purposes. And then it has a host of additional security protections for schools around the state and funding to go with it. So no, I don't think it can't change because it's already through committees, but it's already a pretty big bill.
Well, that's good because that way you can save this question to the next session. The next question is there any chance the unintended consequences of the sunshine laws might be amended to allow local governments to be much more effective?
Anybody want to take on sunshine?
I haven't seen a bill on sunshine law, correct me if I'm wrong, colleagues, and I've talked to your folks about this issue. We just got to be careful with sunshine law changes, because I can, if we were to make some changes, I can see some criticism coming the other way with the change. Do you really want county commissioners talking in private about developments or projects or things that are coming up for vote? I think some members of the public would maybe have a problem with that they want all the public participation and all the voting and all the discussion in the sunshine as opposed to in the back rooms. So I am all with you about these fly-by-night, suing folks or public officials for one little conversation here or one little email there. But I think we have to be very careful with what changes we make. It has to be a surgical change to balance those 2 different approaches to allow maximum public participation in the sunshine.
We support your scalpel.
Thank you.
Thank you. And since that was a two-part question, I'll let you have the last question if you're standing in line for a question. Are you?
Yes,
Okay,
I
you
am.
just wanna
That's
hold on.
wonderful.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
make it
you.
quick.
Thank you. Melissa Wandel, and I do a lot of advocacy in the state of Florida for children in grief and for highway safety. So for me, I know that the Florida Department of Transportation came to the Transportation Committee to talk about Target Zero, which is zero fatalities and zero crashes and zero serious injuries on our highways, on our Florida roadways. So Manatee County, our teens are the highest death rates of teens in Manatee County for the state of Florida. We do not have any driving is no longer, our driving schools are no longer in our system, in our education system. It's been taken out of our system, and we need to find a way to put it back in, because the biggest part of getting to those zero serious injuries and zero fatalities is by educating our teen drivers. So how can we, myself as an advocate, and working with the Florida Department of Transportation and everyone that feels very that we need to bring driving back into in our school systems, how can we work towards having that happen?
Yeah, Senator Boyd.
Thank you. Thanks, Melissa. Great to see you. I know we worked long and hard on my days as a chamber commando on the red light camera issue.
Yep.
I'm not totally familiar with how much is or is not currently in law and in curriculum. I'd be willing to commit as myself, and I think my colleagues would support it. Manny Diaz, the Commissioner of Education, is a good friend and a good colleague. I'd be happy to talk to him about what process there might be to implement some things that perhaps have been taken out over the years. I know other course curriculums that have somehow disappeared through the years have found their way back into curriculums in schools. So certainly, if I understood your question correctly, that's a step we can take, and I'll be glad to take that and get back with you and let you know what maybe needs to be done, whether it's legislatively or policy oriented, from the Department of Education, how that should be handled. I'd be happy to get an answer for you.
That's wonderful. It went out in 2009, so thank you so much. That really helps us.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you all.
Thank you all very much. I want to give a special thank you to Spectrum by Charter Communications and Kaiser University. I also want to take a point of personal privilege and thank my boss, Dr. Karen Holbrook, the Regional Chancellor of the USF Sarasota Manatee Campus, for allowing me to have pancakes and coffee up here. Thank you. I want to thank METV and your incredible crew. You guys are always so professional and put this up on YouTube as soon as you all can. So thank you all for your support. Thank all the IMG staff here for making our fabulous breakfast, and thank the legislative delegation for being here. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for coming.
Thanks.